All right, welcome everyone to this third meeting of the Connecticut Animal Advocacy Caucus for the 2022 session. Welcome to my co-chair, Rep. Clarice Ditria, and welcome to our co-hosts today, which are Representative Laura Devlin, Representative Jennifer Leeper, who will present. Today is sort of a single issue caucus, so we'll start with a presentation from the two representatives on the tethering and adequate shelter proposed language. And we'll follow that with a Q&A. We'll start with legislators because we're so close to session. Legislators are in and out. So we just want to help them get their questions out as fast as possible so they can also jump to other meetings. And then we'll go with anybody else if anyone else has any questions. Rep. Clarice Ditria, if you wanted to say anything.
Good morning. Thank you, Representative Michelle. I don't have any questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'll just pass on the mic to Rep. Devlin and Rep. Leeper.
Great. Thank you, Rep. Michelle. Hey, before we get started, what is our timing for this? Because we can go as short or long as we would need to.
I think we're basing it on an hour-long meeting with room for Q&A. So I tend to usually push for shorter presentation and more time for Q&A. So up to you. I would say maybe 20 minutes of presentation.
No, that's fine. I didn't know if we were scheduled for 30 minutes or an hour, so we'll just move ahead. And I agree, more time for question and answer, all the better. So before we get started, I just want to thank Rep. Leeper. The two of us have been working together on this legislation, and we're going to kind of split this up. So I'm going to give a little bit of background, and then I'll take us through the first part, which really focuses on the tethering piece, and then Jen will take it over and talk about the adequate shelter piece, and then we are both available for Q&A. I also want to give a shout out to Joanne Basili from Connecticut Votes for Animals, who has been really super helpful and has helped to do a lot of groundwork as we have been reaching out to various stakeholder groups. So we have vetted this draft through multiple ACOs, through my local police force, our local police force, and also our local activists. Just as a little bit of a refresher, this issue came to light again because of an issue within the Fairfield County area, but we know it's not exclusive to that. And what we've really done is revived a piece of legislation that actually passed the House in 2018 by a margin of 132 to 18. And we've really, and it was a interesting year. So the Senate had closed early that year and multiple bills did not make it across the finish line. We are recognizing this is a short session, so we are not doing groundbreaking changes. We are really trying to get Connecticut to the point where multiple other states already are. And our goal is to provide clear parameters for responsible dog owners, and also to not have any unintended consequences for the sportsman dogs, for sporting dogs, for working dogs, for any of those other kinds of categories. We had multiple suggestions from various advocacy groups to add all sorts of things to this legislation. And we really resisted that on the basis of trying to get Connecticut back to a playing field where many other states are. So with that, I'm going to hopefully share my screen. And, oh, that's interesting. Okay. All right. That is not what I want to share with you. So let me get another draft here. Sorry, I thought I was all organized for this. Give me a moment. So Rep. Leeper, I'm going to ask if you wouldn't mind sharing the document that we would like to review, because I am having technical difficulties.
No problem. Let me see if I can have some better luck.
And I also have the document in case this is proving to, here we go.
Let's see. Sorry if everyone's just looking at my desktop. Nope, here we go. Did that work? Can you guys see this?
Perfect.
Sorry to take you on a journey of my desktop.
Thank you very much for doing that. You might just want to put it to full screen if you can up at the top, and that'll have us focus on that and not on your desktop.
Thank you.
Teamwork for the dream work, or however that goes. Okay, so let me start and take us through what we're looking at here. This language overall represents what had passed the House in 2018. And let me just highlight some of the changes that we are talking about and some of the things that were also in that language. So the first piece, and Jen, if you could just scroll down a little bit so we could see that underlined section. The first piece is currently what is in our statute in terms of tethering. But what we are adding here are a couple of things. One, a tether that exposes the dog to risk of harm from dangerous animals or predators. So that was one of the things that, and it's certainly true in my neighborhood where I do have two dogs that we, let out in the yard, but we also have coyotes and the occasional bear and all sorts of things. So that was something that we also, felt that if we're going to protect a dog, they shouldn't be restrained in an area that would pose risk to them from other predators. And the other is that whenever a dog is tethered for more than 15 minutes, that doesn't permit the dog continuous access to water in a sanitary and liquid state. So, one of the things that in my background in agriculture and companion animal work is certainly the importance of water to dogs. Not saying food's not important, but water is critically important. So that was another piece that we are including here. And if we could just scroll down, and we're going to send a copy of this to everybody. Before I continue, let me just ask the question to the legislators on this call. Is it more helpful for you that I go through every provision or just highlight here what are the differences? Because I do recognize you have seen earlier drafts of this, but I don't want to, I would just say maybe raise your hand if you want a different approach. Otherwise, I'm just going to continue to go here. Yeah.
You're good the way you're doing it. It's fine. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay, great. This next piece, when we're looking at around lines 36 to 45, and I'm just going to reference this, but I will shortly turn it over to Rep. Leeper, who will speak to adequate shelter, is that, tethering a dog, so no person shall tether a dog outdoors to a stationary object, etc., or fail to provide a dog with continuous access to adequate shelter. Adequate shelter was included in the language from 2018. I'm going to let Jen cover those definitions as we get to it. But the other piece that we have done is tried to clarify, our current statute talks about a weather advisory and does provide, when a dog should not be tethered for more than a certain period of time. And what we've done is added some more specific language here and tried to make it more common sense also, right? So it is not just heat and cold, but direct sunlight. So wind, rain, snow, or hail that a person should reasonably know can pose an adverse risk to the health or safety of the dog. And we've tried to also include, things like breed, which was their size, age, or physical condition, the thickness of a dog's hair or fur. I've used in our working group, we've had several of you on the call, Rep. Kennedy, Belinsky, Palm, and a couple of others that have looked at some drafts. And I know I've shared, I have, two dogs, both are mixed breeds, both are rescues. One loves the cold. The other one is like, no, let me in now. So thickness of a dog's hair or fur is also important. Unless the tethering or lack of adequate shelter is not for a duration of longer than 15 minutes. And that was what had been included as well. So I'm going to switch over. When we hit down to line 56, we're getting into what the description of adequate shelter is. And Rep. Leeper, I will let you take this section on.
Thanks, Rep. Devlin. And I just want to thank Rep. Devlin for her leadership in pulling all of this together, especially so quickly and in response to the incident that took place in Fairfield County. And I think what she just went over is really helpful from what we were hearing from our advocates and ACOs about being more specific. So they had specific things to point to about what adequate shelter was. So back to section 56. And again, this is a reasonable shelter. And Rep. Devlin, could you specify, is this specifically during a weather advisory, or are we now back into generally what is at all times considered adequate shelter?
So what is considered adequate shelter?
I think that's helpful. Thanks so much for clarifying. So notwithstanding the provisions above, adequate shelter need not be continuously provided to a dog when a person is in the presence of the dog and exposed to the same adverse environment conditions as the dog. Adequate shelter means any structure that, one, at all times provides access to water in a sanitary and liquid state. And I think looking at the temperature today, you understand why we've included that. Natural or artificial light according to a regular cycle of day and night. Space that enables the dog to easily turn around, sit, and lie down, is constructed and maintained in a manner that minimizes the accumulation of any waste, debris, precipitation, and other moisture in and around the shelter, and maximizes the dog's exposure to natural or artificial light according to a regular diurnal light cycle, which really is just, as mentioned above, a regular day and night cycle. It's soundly constructed to prevent sagging or collapse of the structure and is maintained in good repair. In the event of cold outdoor environmental conditions, adequate shelter shall be an enclosed structure that has a solid roof, solid walls with an opening to allow the dog to readily enter and exit the structure, and a floor that is raised off the ground. Insulation, dry bedding, and wind protection at the entrance to keep the dog dry and maintain a normal body temperature, but does not contain a supplemental heating mechanism that poses a risk of fire. In the event of adverse hot outdoor environment conditions, adequate shelter must provide the dog with sufficient shade and ventilation to maintain a dog's normal body temperature. And then we just wanted to specify a few places that are not adequate shelter, but may have met some of the above criteria. So adequate shelter does not include a crawl space under a building or under steps, the space under or inside a vehicle, and any structure that consists of wire or chain link that has openings large enough to risk injury to a dog's paw, or any space that exposes the dog to risk of harm from dangerous animals or predators. So I think that is it. We tried to be really specific so that people felt like they had really clear guidance on how to enforce this. And I don't know, Rep. Devlin, if you have any other context you want to add to this section, or if we should open it up for Q&A.
So the only thing that I would add, and great job covering all of that, Jen, thank you, is that, we very carefully went through this part also, and we had some, in our working group, and, had some very specific questions. One of the things I think before was that it had a windbreak, and we weren't really clear on what that was. So we've really just tried to make this, as common sense, layman language as possible, and made some changes, as a result of that. So no other comments, and I would be happy. Both of us were happy to take questions.
So should I stop sharing so we can see each other a little easier?
Sure. And then
or is it helpful for people to still be able to see the language?
We can maybe bring it up if the questions, yeah. And for questions, what we'll do is we'll just go with raising a hand. And if anybody's raising a hand, We'll take the legislators' questions first due to time constraints with the legislative work pre-session. Doesn't seem like we have any hands raised, so this could be a very short meeting. I think this is like really everybody's. I would say that the large majority of colleagues in what was the year 2018, right?
2000, yep, 2018, and it passed the House. I believe it was 132 to 18. And we've really tried to stay true to this language. This might have been more groundbreaking, if you will, in 2018, but it certainly is not in 2022. Other states, have moved on beyond this. And sorry, I just got a text alert that totally threw me off track. But it really is very similar to what had passed in 2018 with significant support from the House.
Okay. And I see Rep. Dayton as her hand up.
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to commend Rep. Devlin's work on this and Rep. Leeper. This is really wonderful. And I'm pleased that you're taking the initiative. I'm glad to see this out there, and let me know what I can do to support this. So, thanks so much.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Lucy.
Joanne Basil from Connecticut Votes for Animals. You're muted.
Thanks, David. Too many things to do at one time. I want to thank the representatives for taking the lead on bringing this bill to the chamber. It's days like this of the past 2 weeks that we really appreciate the need to provide some shelter and covering for our animals that are left outside. And I think this goes a long way towards bringing us there. And as Representative Devlin said, the bill really does stay very true to what was passed in 2018, a bill that I was also involved in back during that time. And we're hopeful as a result of that, this will receive the kind of support that it needs in order to get it over the finish line this time. But thank you, Representative Leeper, and thank you, Representative Devlin, for taking the lead on this issue.
Thank you, Joanne. And I see Rep. Nuccio as a hand up.
Good morning, everybody. Oh, I think he's all messed up. Sorry about that. I have a question a little off the topic of this. I look forward to getting this legislation from Laura. I was the one who dinged her phone to say, can you please send me this language so I can review it? I'm wondering if the caucus, is this an appropriate time to ask if the caucus would be interested in another proposal? Right now we're doing Q&A on the bill that was presented, and we can have, before we leave, today is like really a single issues caucus, but you could certainly bring up something and then we can certainly address it on the next, or by email, or on the next caucus meeting. Okay,
Sure.
I'll wait then until everybody's done with questions, and I will send my proposal out to the ether after that.
Thank you. Thank you, Rep. Nuccio. Co-Chair Clarice Di.
Hello, thank you. Sorry, I'm not in the car anymore. My question, Laura, what any of our neighboring states already have this law passed?
So, you know what? I can't recite every single one. Maryland is certainly doing this right now. Texas has done this. Pennsylvania has done this. And I might toss this to Joanne, who could recite them. I do have a list of state laws, and I may have shared it with many of you. But Joanne, can you sort of speak to?
I'll give you some of the ones that are in the immediate area. Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey all have these kinds of statutes in place. And I, unfortunately, I don't have the list in front of me, so I can't give you the others. But this has, I would say, clearly more than half of the states have these adequate shelter bills. And what's interesting, I think I shared with Representative Devlin that Virginia has a bill that frankly is more provides more is more descriptive than our bill is, and it comes a little bit of a surprise because I used to live in Virginia, and it's a it's a state where they leave their animals outside a lot because a lot of their animals, their dogs, are hunting dogs, and it seems as if they've been able to be able to balance that provision of providing support for or keeping the dogs safe, as well as not being too intrusive in the dog owner's lifestyle.
Okay, that's great. I just think we know that when it gets to the point, whether it has a public hearing or on the floor of the House, those are the questions people always ask, what other states have this law. So I think moving forward, we get that information. It'll just be more, more information for us to be able to distribute. But thank you for your work, Rep. Devlin, and everybody that's worked on this. I think it's a very important bill. Thank you.
Thank you to my co-chair.
And Rep. Leeper, sorry, my bad. Rep. Leeper, got it. Sorry.
And we have Jill Brandy.
Hi. So yeah, this is great. I just had a quick question, and apologies if I missed it. Does this just pertain to dogs, or does this expand to other animals that we have in the state?
This pertains specifically to dogs.
Okay. No chance of it getting, and again, I totally agree with this, but people tether many other animals that are, it's inhumane. So, okay, thank you.
I think that's something that we could always, look at, but with the work that originally went into this bill and the short time frame that we have now and the outreach that we have done, it has really been specific to dogs. But thank you for raising that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Definitely, there's definitely a lot of room for a lot of work on animal rights, animal advocacy issues. Thank you, Jill. Anyone else? Any questions or comments on this piece particularly? And then I know that we have, I believe, maybe 2 guests today that might want to talk about something else, address the committee, or the caucus, sorry, about. So I think somebody earlier raised their hand, and I can't find the person. Who was?
Are you referring to Tammy?
Oh, yeah, Tammy. Sorry, Rep. Nuccio. Go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you very much. So I've been to a couple of conferences for insurance related issues. And one of the things that I started talking to people about is discrimination of dogs and insurance policies, especially homeowners and apartment policies. And the insurance that apparently, obviously, if you have 13, that there's like these 13 different types of dogs. If you have one of these dogs, they can deny you insurance or make your insurance like twice the amount that it is just because of the breed of the dog, and not specifically based on the individual dog's behaviors. And I'm interested in pursuing legislation to make that not be a thing here in Connecticut. So I wasn't sure if there was anybody who'd be interested in working on that. I think insurance companies should definitely be able to rate you higher if your dog bites somebody. If you have a dog that has been involved in something and bites somebody, then you have to pay a higher insurance premium because you're at a risk. But I don't think it's fair that entire breeds of dogs, including terriers, like some of these dogs that are on this list, I find like there's 13 different breeds that they consider these high risk dogs, and you can lose your insurance. You cannot get insurance. You can have to pay double insurance, specifically just based off of the breed of the dog. There was a lot of presentation where people have shown that there's no good solid information out there that justifies this. And then in the insurance companies, they say there is. So I think it'd be good to have a public hearing to really understand it, to kind of put something forward to kind of review it and see if it's a legitimate practice or if it's something that we shouldn't be doing. So I don't know if I have any allies out there who would like to help me with this, but I have a great shirt that I got that says, if you discriminate against my dog, you discriminate against me. And I'd be happy to like get it out to anybody who wants it. But I think there's some good people out there, and there's other states that have already passed this legislation. So there is precedence out there, and I'd be very happy to provide that to anybody should they want it.
Yeah, thank you, Rep. Nucho. That's great raising that that issue and concern. I'm not really well informed on this, so definitely something I'm extremely interested in looking into. And I think being in the Animal Advocacy Caucus, I pretty much would sense that you would have some, at least, you know, some support from this caucus on, you know, it's a caucus to support animal advocacy issues, and this is definitely an issue. And I think there was somebody else also wanted to bring up either Zach or somebody from the Humane Society. I know they wanted to pitch something to the caucus. Or
yeah, Representative Michelle, thank you for allowing us to speak during this. I know something that, you know, I can kick this over to James from the Humane Society, but one of the things that we wanted to discuss was shelter standards. I know a lot of the state representatives here like to see research on what other states are doing. And to the point of that, I think we can send around some background on shelter standards in other states that we put together over here. I can send that around to the group if that's okay. But I would like to kick it over to James, see if he wants to talk a little bit about shelter standards. And again, Representative Michelle, thank you very much for hosting this and allowing us to chat during it.
Sure, thank you. And you know, you raising that, I don't know if anyone from the Humane Society was on the first meeting for this session. We did actually talk about shelters, private shelter standards and municipal shelter standards, which have other functions, right, that might not be exactly the same as private shelters. And there might be a working group. We're talking about a working group, but there's so much stuff happening right now, so it's we're trying to look in order of appearance of what we should be doing. So yeah, if James wants to pitch something to us, that more than welcome to. Is James?
You know, thank you, Representative Michelle, and I'll be brief. I know that this was not on the agenda, but I just appreciate the opportunity as one of the new people on the call. Certainly, Connecticut Humane Society has been around for a number of years, but just trying to wrap my head around recognizing different standards of care. We're not talking about operational issues and the municipal shelters having standards that have not been updated since 1963. And certainly the work and passage 4+ years ago and now release standards this past year for nonprofits, rather than trying to have two standards of care, really trying to just really bring the municipal shelters and maybe even in a staged calendar process to just those most recent minimum standards and really not try to throw more work back onto the state to come up with two sets of standards, but just really trying to bring the municipal shelters to these basic standards that were just recently adopted.
Right, and thank you, James. Recently, even some ACOs brought concerns on their own municipal shelters, and it could be the standards, existing standards, but as well as also the enforcement also from DUAG onto the municipal shelters. And DUAG has been totally open to discussions. So I think we might have a working group in the near future, and we'll definitely make sure that we include you in the works. I know, Joanne, you'd raised your hand, and I'm sorry, I know I didn't ask you. Go ahead.
No, I'm fine, David. Thank you very much.
Okay. Kathleen Magner.
Yes, hi. Thank you, Rep. Michelle, for hosting the meeting. I just wanted to ask the the committee to, on behalf of the Sierra Club Wildlife Committee, to urge advocacy and support to prohibit the use of leg hold and body crushing traps in the upcoming session. The use of these types of traps are indiscriminate to age, sex, species, and result typically in injury, pain, suffering, and death, not only to the target animals, but to many other unintended victims, including our endangered and threatened native wildlife and pets also. So I'd be happy to provide any other information, but I'm very much hoping that the Animal Advocacy Caucus would seriously consider supporting this. Thank you so much.
Sure, and Kathleen, thank you. We did, on the first meeting, we went through the 10, I think it was 10 issues, or at least 9 legislative, 10 issues that we covered. And what we're going to do is we'll send the members of the caucus the original list of priorities for the caucus, including the leg hold trap, absolutely. At the same time, I'll remind everyone that the committees have already, chairs have already also said that they will be very limited in bills, but we should definitely push for what we can get, of course. And so we'll send the language for today's bill that Rep. Devlin and Rep. Leeper worked on, and we'll share it with the members of the caucus. And also we'll put back again the list of the caucus priorities for this year. Although I don't think we've seen ever 10 priorities for animals go through in one session, and let alone a short session. But we're happy to share this with you again. And thank you for bringing that up again, Kathleen. Kathleen is with the Sierra Club, and so that just wanted to make sure everybody, and we thank the Sierra Club for their participation as well. Does anybody else have any questions, comments, anything they want to bring up? That was a good time. That's 35 minutes. Wow. It is a single issues caucus. The next meeting will probably be either during committee process, it might be after the public hearing process, and will be definitely focused on the bills that are alive, and that could be called on the chambers and see where we can focus on next efforts to help bring those bills forth. Jill, I see your hand is raised.
Just a quick comment. I attended the Environment Summit, and Christine Cohen and Joe Gresco were on, and Joe did mention that a couple of the bills that they're considering was, of course, the circus bill, and then the crustaceans, I think, were 2 specifically that he brought up. I don't know if you attended or not, David, but I was encouraged to hear both of those at least mentioned.
Yeah, so there is definitely, Chair Gresco has been a champion in the protection of horseshoe crab, which is, I think they're older than any other living being on this planet. We never really did talk about this issue in the caucus. There were talks with the chair, of course. I'm fully, of course, supportive, and maybe we can engage in that discussion as well on the next caucus. Maybe we should have a caucus during the committee meetings before the public hearing process to talk about the bills that might be, really introduced by the committee chairs. That might be the next step, actually, and we could then focus on more efforts. And definitely, the horseshoe crabs is an absolutely very valid battle. Thank you for raising that up. And yes, they did confirm the ban on use of exotic animals in traveling shows and circuses. So it's encouraging to hear that we will have some of our issues go through. I think it's still right now tough to say for all efforts which committees they're going to hit at this point. And so there will definitely be some updates. So we'll try to have another caucus meeting. I'll talk with my co-chair, and we'll try to set up another meeting that could be very opportune and at a crucial moment. I'll leave the last words to my co-chair.
Thank you, David. Thank you, everybody today. I know this this legislation is important to obviously everybody here, but it's more important to the dogs out there. So we're trying to save lives. We do that every day, whether it's human or not. I think this is really important stuff. So thank you, everybody, for being here today and pushing this great, important legislation forward.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you to Dawn for running the Zoom part of the meeting.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.